Okay, so hey Rebecca, we're learning the laws of Amirah and Nachri, what we're allowed to tell over to Gentiles to do on Shabbos. We're going to bring up the text. In the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, again, this is a very long subject in Halacha. We're learning the Kitzur of it, the short version. As such, we're not going to cover all issues or questions. Okay, we're holding Law 17. The Kitzur says as follows: Davar she'eni melacha gemura, something which is not truly a melacha, truly something of a work. Ve'eni asr ela mishum shvus, that's only prohibited rabbinically. We'll see in the footnotes. Im hu tzarach mitzvah oy miktsas chayli. If this thing that's not really, it's forbidden because of a shvus rabbinically, meaning to say that's why would the rabbis make it a forbidden thing to do is because of a concern that maybe that would lead to a true malacha, a true something. Meaning, it's not that the rabbi is saying this is something that's considered a malacha that the Torah doesn't recognize. It's something that's too close to a malacha that may lead to a malacha, may lead to doing something. So therefore, if it's in a situation where that by doing it, or if we would do it, it would help in a mitzvah. We need it for a mitzvah, or in a situation where someone's a bit sick and we need to do something in order to help this person who is sick, and what we need to do is considered a shavus, something rabbinic. So in that case, not that you're allowed to do it, but then it's okay to tell a Gentile to do it for you. So if it's for a mitzvah, or if it's to help someone who's sick. Based on this, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says, because of this, there's the custom, based on this law. Lishloch any Yehudi b'Shabbos, to ask a non-Jew on the Shabbos, lahavi sheichar oishar davar l'tzarich Shabbos, af b'makom she'ein eruv. And so that to ask a Gentile to carry for you over sheichar is beer, or other things that are for the Shabbos, meaning to say for the Shabbos, like for the Suda, for the meal, that to help with the meal. So what you're asking to tell a Gentile to do it is a shvus. It's rabbinically, you're not allowed to ask a Gentile to do it for you. But in this case, you could ask a Gentile to do it for you. This is only permissible if you have nothing to drink. But if you're saying, "Oh, I want a fancier wine or a variety of beer," that's something different. But if you have nothing to drink and this is going to disrupt your Shabbos, so you could ask a Gentile to do it for you. But just to add to pleasure, not that you don't have what to drink. So you just and Shabbos is supposed to have pleasure. You're supposed to have oinig. You're supposed to enjoy Shabbos. You're supposed to have joy on Shabbos and enjoy Shabbos. So that's only if you have no joy, meaning to say because you have nothing to drink. But if you say, "Oh, I want a better one or a fancier whiskey or a fancier variety of beer," then that's not permissible, and that applies to other things as well, obviously. V'loimer le'en Yehudi. However, the Kitzur continues to tell a non-Jew, lahavi michutz l'tchum. Here, we're not asking him to carry for you where there's no Erev. Something that means within a permissible space in theory, just there's no Erev for you to carry. But here we're talking about outside of the boundaries. Means that you can't bring it in because it's out of the space of Shabbos. If the Gentile brings it for you, you already did it, but you did it already. So okay, I did it, I shouldn't have done it, but now that he brought it, maybe I could use it. No. And we know this, and this prohibition, again, there's less details in the Kitzur, but this idea of when something is done by a Gentile, or something is done in a prohibited way, and it's already done, so it doesn't work like that you could just use it. And not only that, usually you have to wait b'chtei shi'asa matzah Shabbos. Means if it would take you an hour to get it on Saturday night, so you would have to wait that hour even Saturday night, because if not for this person has brought it to your possession or your area over Shabbos, so now you wouldn't have it available to eat it right now. So you say, well, now it's not Shabbos. Well, you have to wait until it would have taken you the time from Saturday night till now to get it. It's called b'chtei shi'asa. Now, I feel with the evidence also b'shas ma'ashevi. And some say, with regard to this law of bringing things outside the tchum, outside the boundary, Dehu adin, this is also the law, b'makim hefset, even if there's loss. What would be the case? Let's say you left something outside in the rain, and it's outside the tchum, and you're asking, could you go please out to the field and get I left my tools outside in the rain. And if it rains, it could get damaged. You can't tell them. Sorry. V'yeshaim dehu adim b'makim hefset. Going to taltus chayra nefsadis b'neksham. Muta ade any Yehudi. Hold on a second. Let's see. I think I'm missing something here. The wording over here, I want to see the English. The wording over here seems a little off. Hold on a second. Let's see it in English. It is forbidden to tell non-Jew to bring something from outside the tchum, and even that which has already been brought is forbidden to be used on Shabbos. Some poskim say that this applies also where you face a loss, therefore carrying in the merchandise that is being ruined by the rain is submitted through a non-Jew. You may rely on this opinion where a substantial loss is involved. Okay, the V'yesh Omrim is going back to the first law, to ask someone to carry something for you in let's say beer or whiskey. We're not talking about the outside of the tchum. That if something's outside in the rain and you can't carry it because there's no Erev, so to ask a non-Jew to bring it in. Some say that if that's not about pleasure for Shabbos. It's not like you're bringing in beer so you can enjoy Shabbos. You just don't want your thing to get damaged, which is causing you agony on Shabbos because you're stressed out. So then it says, in a case where there's a great loss, you could rely on this opinion. Let's see it in the footnotes here. Meaning the Yesh Omrim is going on the law before, not the law of outside the Tchum. Okay. 58, he says, footnote 58 is a rabbinic, Shvus means a rabbinic prohibition. Again, the rabbinic prohibition in this case is that because it's not a clear Melachah, it's not an obvious Melachah, the rabbis have been stringent to include this into something that's forbidden on Shabbos because of concern it would lead to Melachah. So in a case where it affects your joy of Shabbos, or if someone's a little bit sick, so then if it's something like outside and you can't carry, then you could ask the Gentile to carry it inside. And at the end of the law, he says this is included not just in a case where you need oinig, but also in a case where there's hefsed meruba, where there's a great loss if it stays outside, for instance, in the rain. Again, the one hefsed meruba has to be taken with you have to be careful with that. A lot of people use that as a just, okay, fine, it's a hefsed meruba. You can't just, you have to, yada inish benavshay, a person themselves knows if it's really a great loss, if it's just something, if you leave something outside that's just inconvenient, it's not a great loss. So to rely on that, it's up to the person. A lot of people use the hefsed meruba, so to say, loophole to do things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. Okay, footnote number 60 is 59 is a reference. So he says, even where there's no Erev established, you're allowed to ask the non-Jew. And the prohibition to carry is only dirabanan. Okay, so this he doesn't add in the Kitzur, but that's obvious what he means. It means we're not talking about asking the non-Jew to go to a public domain, again, Rishus HaRabim, and bring it into Rishus HaYachid, because that's not a Shvus, that's the Araisa. The Carmelis, which is the kind of, which is most spaces today, meaning that not considered a public domain, it's a rabbinic public domain. So then to ask a Gentile to carry for the Oinig Shabbos, or if someone is sick, is okay. And in the case of Hefsed Meruba, if there's going to be a great loss. Again, the structure of this law is a bit challenging because the V'yesh Omrim seems to continue on the idea of the Tchum, but it means to say on the idea of the rabbinic Shvus. Okay. Let's see it inside the footnotes. 61. The Tchum, the point outside the city to where it is permitted to walk on Shabbos. Up until that point is the Tchum, is the place outside the city you could walk. Post that, after that point, it's forbidden to walk. Nothing to do with carrying. You're not allowed to walk outside of your space on Shabbos, which is called the Tchum, which is the limit. So to ask a Gentile to bring something from outside the limit into the limit is walking for you and bringing something from you outside of your space. Again, it's not about the carrying in the public domain or bringing from public domain to private domain. It's the issue of going outside of the allowed space on Shabbos. And that you're not allowed to tell a Gentile to do. And if he does it, you're not allowed to benefit from it on the Shabbos, even if he already did it. Okay, he says it's forbidden to be used on the Shabbos. To you and your household. To others, however, it is permitted. So here he brings down from the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Brura that clarify the statement. Again, it's so to say, I don't want to use the word of punishment, but we're being careful to make sure the person who's violating the Shabbos, meaning to say, telling the Gentile to do something for you when he's not allowed to tell him that, and say, okay, well, I did a mistake, now I'm going to benefit, that kind of prohibition that you can't benefit through the Shabbos is only applicable to you. But for others, once it's already brought in, and it's not forbidden for them to benefit from it. Where we go, yeah. However, it is to others. However, it's permitted. Consequently, the object is not muksa and may be handled by anyone. Okay, it's not considered a muksa thing because it's outside the tchum. That's what it means to say. Okay, 63 is next law.
Got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, say it's your birthday and it's on Shabbos. So you're going to invite some people who aren't Jewish to your little party. And you know that they might bring you, everything they bring you is kosher, but it's Shabbos. So can you use it? Can you drink the wine or anything?
You're inviting someone who's bringing you a gift on Shabbos in a way that's not permissible.
So even if it's kosher food or wine?
No, I understand that, but I'm saying, let's say, driving in a car over with a bottle of wine or carrying on Shabbos with a bottle of wine. That's your question, right?
And they're not Jewish, but they're buying you kosher food.
They're not Jewish. Okay, it's the difference if they're not Jewish of the Jewish.
I know if they're Jewish, that they should know and not do it. But we're talking about you're having a party because it's your birthday and it happens to be Shabbos when it's your birthday. And you know, but you didn't tell them that they'll bring you some gifts like food and it's all kosher.
No, if you didn't tell them, then it's not. The problem over here is telling the Gentile. If
So
you
if you
didn't,
invite them and you
okay, I'm
know they'll
saying
bring it.
let's take wine out of it because wine is a complicated subject.
Okay, so let's not talk about wine. They just want to bring you
That's when they bring you a basket.
cakes.
They bring you a bag of apples.
Yeah.
So okay. So in such a situation, I mean, after we have to double check. In such a situation, there's no Amirah Nachri. He didn't pick it specifically for you, especially nowadays. They're not people not picking apples. So he didn't maybe, and we don't know that he purchased it today or she purchased it today for you. They could have purchased it on Friday, and if they did purchase it today, it was they could have done. It's their choice. They're not doing it for you. So there was no you involvement besides the fact that you invited them to the party and they wanted to participate. I don't see that would be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now law number 18. Be'ez hakoyer, when it's cold. Okay, these are the questions. What again? We're learning the laws, complicated laws of Amirah Lav Akum, very shorthand. Means this is the Kitzur. So these are complicated laws because it comes around a lot. What can I tell a Gentile? What can I what am I allowed to ask a Gentile to do if you have help in the house, etc. Be'ez hakor, when it's cold. It's okay to ask the Gentile to turn on the heat or the furnace. Because you're considered sick. Anyone who's cold, this is a rule, he says. Everyone's considered a sick person when it comes to cold. Being cold is like being sick. And therefore, not just because it causes you to get, God forbid, pneumonia or something like that, but the experience of being cold is like you're being sick. And therefore, to ask a Gentile if you're really cold to turn on the furnace is okay. It says mutter, it's allowed. So here he says, however, you have to be diligent. That not just that, it's 75 and you want it to 76 or 72, you want 73. Like it's okay, you're comfortable, but you're a little, again, these are things that are given over to the individual. Because everyone knows that one of the conversations we have in weather-related issues, whether it's in the summer from the heat or the winter the cold, is that one person's comfort level is the next person's freeze level. One person's freezing, the house is freezing, another person's like the house is stuffy. So this is not something that you could say this is the temperature the rabbis decided a house must be, and anything past that is considered any mukhrach. It could be there's some rabbis who's going to give us that temperature, but mostly it's depending on the person. Some people are colder and some people are warmer, and it's vice versa when it comes to air conditioning. So therefore, he says you have to know yourself. If it's not mukhrach, it's not so important. We're not talking about freezing. It's just talking about you want to be a little bit more warmer, then you shouldn't do it. And then here specifically, you're not allowed to ask, for instance, the Gentile to turn on your hot water for, let's say, your furnace for your shower. I want a hot shower right after Shabbos, and you don't have a Shabbos clock. In Israel, we have Shabbos clocks, and that's another question. I'm saying, let's say you don't have a Shabbos clock, and you want the heat to be ready for Motzei Shabbos. So then surely you're not allowed to ask. It's not something for right now. It's for you're just asking the person to prepare Motzei Shabbos. You turn it on yourself. Okay, there's no footnotes on this one. Asr l'shloach ein Yehudi chutz latchum b'shvil korvei hameis or b'shvil safton. So he says, forbidden to send a non-Jew out of the tchum to summon the relatives of the deceased or someone to eulogize him. Means you can't. Again, this is a question of you're not doing anything wrong. You just can't walk that far. Let's say for you to go to the next town, you have to go out of your limitations, right? The limited space a person can walk out of, and you want to go to the next town to call someone to come over to eulogize or help or to come be over for the levaya. You're not allowed to ask a Gentile to go out of the tchum for you. Let's see footnote number 63 for more details. Even to tell him on Friday to go on Shabbos is forbidden. Means even if you tell, I didn't tell him on Shabbos, I told him on Friday. Is it okay for you Saturday to drive over? Okay, it doesn't have to be to walk, right? If you ask a Gentile, do me a favor, drive over to the next town, which is out of the tchum, and go tell people X, Y, and Z. However, on Shabbos, you may tell him to go after Shabbos since a mitzvah is involved. So here the Magen Avram, the Mishnah Berurah say, on Shabbos you can say, if right after Shabbos, can you jump in the car and bring over my family, that need to come over for for the levaya. But here's talking about a mitzvah for the levaya, for the burial, and for the hesped, for the eulogy, etc. All right, continue. Law number 20.
Can I ask one question? Can you ask if someone died and it's the time, if it wasn't Shabbos, to rip your shirt? Can you ask a Gentile to do it?
Oh, no. That's 100% not.
So then when do you do it? You just do it later?
Yeah, of course. No, you don't do it. There's no mourning on Shabbos. You're not allowed to mourn on Shabbos.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Luckily, I didn't have anybody die on me that close that I had to worry about it. So did not know.
No, it's a good question, but the answer is absolutely not.
Okay.
Not because in the middle of the Nochi, you're not allowed to mourn on Shabbos. The whole experience is forbidden on Shabbos.
Oh, did not know.
Okay. Nachri hamevi tvua liYisrael b'chayvai v'Yisrael noisen layes hamaftech la'oitzayroi. So if a Gentile, non-Jew, delivers grain to a Jew as payment of a debt, and the Jew gives him the key of the warehouse, and now the Gentiles knows, okay, I owe him, whether it's like you owe the wheat or you owe the money, and you deliver it, and he measures. He's even doing another thing. He's not just delivering it. He's actually measuring to see that this is the amount I owe. It's mutter, it's permitted. The Gentile, this is where it goes into, where the Gentile is doing what he has to do. This is for a Gentile to do things at his own convenience, that you don't have to get involved. And we learned this about the laws, for instance, in cleaning. This is, for instance, there's permissible ways for a Gentile to clean, and there's easier ways for him to clean, which you can't do. Let's say turn on the dishwasher. That's not your problem, because he's not turning on the dishwasher for you. He's turning on the dishwasher for himself. So that's this it falls out. This is what it means over here. That any Yehudi, the non-Jew, is melachas atzmai Isaac. He's doing it. He's doing it himself. This is what is convenient for him. Why? Because it's the measuring itself is not the Jews. He's measuring it so he should know how much he has to pay the Jew. Let's say he has to pay him a pound of wheat or a pound of flour, right? So by weighing the flour, that's still his own thing. He wants to make sure he's giving the right amount. Once he weighs it and it's already a pound, then the Melachah is over, and now he's giving it to you. By Yisrael mutar le'lamatram shlayata oisai levad shlayidabri ma'klal min eisek. He says the Jew is allowed to stand there to be certain that he is not cheated, right? Because the person may say, "Yeah, I delivered a pound of wheat," and you come in and there's a half a pound, and say, "No, I don't know what happened. When I delivered, there was a pound." So you're allowed to stand there to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. But b'vachli dabri ma'klal min eisek, we're not allowed to talk and converse about the transaction or about the repayment. Avalim hevi le'tfur shaloi. But if the non-Jew delivers the Jew's own grain, Asr lehem lefanis asr lehem lehem lefanoisa min hagalos teichaitzrak. Then you're not allowed. If let's say you have a non-Jewish worker, again in a way that's permissible for the non-Jewish worker to be involved in your wheat, whether he's a worker, whatever, what have you, and he comes with his car, with his wagon, with his truck. You're not allowed to say, "Okay, unload the truck over here." You're not allowed to do that because now he's not repaying a debt. He's doing work for you for your wheat. I mean, even more than that. If let's say it's even convenient for him, you're not asking him, he's doing it on his own. No, but he's doing it specifically for you, then you have to tell him to please stop. Okay, these again short laws in the laws of Amirah and Melachah. 64. See the following footnote. Okay, we'll look in the next one, which is law number 66, footnote number 66. Law number 21. Okay, we know when I was growing up, so the chal of Yisrael, milk, that was we had available in Seattle, we would go and be the mashgichim. My father had a relationship with the farms that would make chal of Yisrael milk, and of course they would kosher. They would sterilize the equipment and make it kosher, that there shouldn't be equipment that were used for chal vakum, non-kosher milk. And we would come there and we would watch and we would do a run once every 2 weeks. And that milk lasted us for 2 weeks. We put in the freezer, what have you. So the Gentile is milking, like in that case, is making the cheese. And the Jew is just watching the milking and the cheese making. Because that would make it chal v'Yisrael, by watching and making sure that the Gentile doesn't mix in any forbidden materials like non-kosher milk. And then because you stood there, it means what did you do? Everything so far is permissible. You didn't walk out of their space. You didn't do any melachah. You just stood over the Gentile like a mashgiach would do, watching to make sure that the Gentile is not doing anything incorrect with regard to the milking. You're quiet. You're not conversing with him. I mean, at least not about the business. You could be talking things that are permissible on Shabbos. And then you're not buying anything from him. But now that it's already been done, so now it becomes chol v'Yisrael cheese, and you could buy the cheese from the Gentile because it has hashkacha. It's been watched. So he says, therefore, and the whole reason why the Gentile, so to say, is allowing for you to be in his property or in this space, wherever they're doing it, is because he plans on selling chol v'Yisrael milk. That's his business, right? It's still permitted. Because at the end of the day, the whole Shabbos, nothing's changed. It doesn't belong to the Jew because you watched it. You just now made it that it's permissible for the Gentile to sell it to you. And the Gentile's not doing it for you. That's his business. He's doing it for himself. He wants to sell kosher cheese. The only way for him to sell kosher cheese is if you stand over him. So he says it's permissible. And this is obviously goes into the general laws of hashkacha. Umutter liYisrael afil leimer loy sheyasa v'afilu b'Shabbos. Shemutter leimer l'nochi yasei melachtecha afilu magim is a revach Yisrael. And here he adds to that. You're allowed to even tell the Gentile, let's do a chal v'Yisrael run. So you're telling him to do it. He wasn't thinking about doing it. Because you're telling the Gentile to do his job, it's for himself. It's his business. He's not doing your milking of your cows. He's making the cheese for his own business. Even though that you benefit because you're buying it, makes it permissible for you. Okay, let's see the footnotes on this. Again, this is a big law on a big subject of being a mashgiach and a plant on Shabbos, right? Okay, 66.
What if 'cause this happened in Syria? My wife told me, but I don't know if it happened on Shabbos. But I'm just bringing it up. They bring the sheep over to get milked, and they bring it to your house, and they milk it right in front of you. What if they did that on Shabbos?
Say that again.
Okay, so in Syria, I don't know that they did it on Shabbos, probably not, but I'm just bringing it up as a point to see what would happen. So they walk around, especially on certain times of the year, with a sheep, and they milk it in front of you of your house. So what if you don't ask? I mean, they just come. But what if it was on Shabbos? You didn't tell them anything, but they asked, "Would you like milk? Could
Uh,
you take
uh,
it?"
they're milking. Who owns the sheep?
The Muslims.
No, they walk around with the sheep and say, "Can I make you a glass of milk?" Basically.
A bucket of milk. You have to still boil it. It's not totally, but you watch it.
Um, it seems from the law, it seems clearly that transaction has to happen after Shabbos.
Okay. So you'd have to say no.
No, you say no, but you could watch him do it, and then he could bring it to you after Shabbos.
Oh, so he would have to bring it to you after Shabbos. Well,
But
according to what I know, is that you watch it and you don't want them to leave with
Rich,
it
no,
because
oh
then you
no,
don't know
no,
what they'll do with it.
yeah, of course that creates a problem. Yeah, but that's why I'm saying it has to be done in a way that there's this, even in this case that we learned right now, right? It says you're watching the person make cheese, so you can buy it after Shabbos. How do you know he didn't switch the cheese? So whatever it is that you have to maybe he double seals it in front of you, whatever it is, the whole process to make it permissible to buy it from him, and that we learned in the law would apply to that case.
Okay.
Exactly the case we're talking. It's a good question, and I'm not 100% sure what I told you is accurate. Meaning to say, it could be in the case where there's a kind of a open bill, and at the end of a month, he says, you took from me 5 gallons of milk, and brings in Shabbos. Could possibly, not. It seems like not, but could possibly that case would be different. Okay, number 66. 66 is just a reference. 67, sorry. It says it's written since the cheese is still non-Jews. Whereas where grain is concerned, weighing it caused it to be considered the Jews. Nevertheless, weighing it is considered the Jews. Nevertheless, milk is considered the non-Jews even if it has been paid for, provided he has not yet taken Nevertheless, the milk is considered the non-Jews even if it has been paid for, provided he has not taken delivery, because he can reject the milk and ask for other milk. Okay, so here you see clearly you can't take the milk on Shabbos from the shul. I'm not sure. One second. I'm gonna go back a second. It says over here. Okay, the difference he's saying the difference why he's saying the difference of the milk with the wheat, because in the wheat he was very careful. You're not allowed to say anything to the Gentile, whereas in the milk you're allowed to even tell him to do it. So why? Because the wheat, the grain, is the person's measuring it for you. So he's saying as soon as he measures it, sorry to say, it becomes the Jews. So if you tell him to do it, so then you're telling him to do something for you. Whereas in the case of the milking, it's not yours until you pay for it, or until he delivers it. And even if you paid for it, you could always ask for a different milk. You didn't pay for this milk; you paid for a gallon of milk. Okay, let's continue until us. Is that understood? So, Aaron, that answers your question. In the case of what you're talking about in Syria, that would not be allowed.
Okay. I understand it.
Any Yehudi should, and this is a few laws of a very long, detailed subject. The subject of Amirah Nachri is there's books on it. Here we're learning it in a few laws. Any Yehudi shekanas chayrim Yisrael above b'Shabbos lekachta im efsha yesh lemonai. If you sell, you had a transaction with a Gentile for something, for schora, for materials, for the goods, and he comes to pick it up. It means the transaction already happened. He's just coming for picking it up. If you can, excuse me, try to get him to not do it, not to come by on Shabbos to pick it up. Let's see the Mishnah Brura says over here. lest it seems to others that he is transporting the goods at your behest, because this is a question of maris ayin. Means people who are watching what's happening, they're not sure that they don't know that he already bought it and it's his, and he's just picking up his. People may think that there was a transaction happening over here, or he's doing something for you on Shabbos, or that you sold him the goods on Shabbos. Again, this is a place for a misunderstanding. Maris ayin is a big deal on Shabbos. Maris ayin means what the eye perceives. So it's not always what happened is what the eye perceives. And Maris ayin affects a lot of things, right? Where a person thinks, oh, this person did a sin. He didn't do a sin. This was a transaction that happened on Friday, but you see that the person picked it up. You think you made the transaction today. So this falls under the question of Maris ayin. So, or that you sold him the goods on Shabbos. It says the Rambam and the Taz. It is unnecessary to cause a physical, yeah, uh, I guess attraction is again to any kind of, you know, big argument or what have you, to prevent a non-Jew from taking delivery. If he comes up and he paid for it, and he shows up in Shabbos and wants it, and it could get complicated if you say no. He may think you're stealing from him or you don't want to deliver it. Then whatever, then let it be. In this case, we're not asking you to go full, absolutely not come back tomorrow. But if you can prevent it, prevent it. If not, just let it be. Okay. Mi sheyesh la yard site. If a person has their yard site, meaning a day that you're the passing of your parents, the Shabbos on the Shabbos itself, v'shachach lahadik ner shal yard site, and you forgot to light the yard site candle. If it's still not Shabbos 100%, ben hashmashis is twilight. So after the candle lighting, what hasn't really become dark, then because ben hashmashis is not clearly 100% Shabbos, you could ask the Gentile quick. You can't light it because we don't do Melachah in twilight, but you could ask a Gentile to light it for you. Avalei b'Shabbos, once it's already Shabbos, it's too late. And 69 is obviously going to explain what a yard site is the anniversary of the death of a parent. Okay, this covers the law, chapter number 90, which deals with the laws of Amirah and Nachri. We have a half hour. Let's continue to the laws, chapter number 91. Are there any questions on this chapter or today's class so far before we go to the next chapter, which is a new subject?
Just wanted you to bring up, you once told us there's stores you can get stuff if it's Shabbos that you don't have on your table. How does that work into with everything you just mentioned?
That's not a Amirah and Nachri. That's a case of taking things from a Gentile. That's a case where we have to refresh ourselves when we go over these laws in more detail with the Shemirat Shabbat Kehilchatah later, because it's more detailed. But where it's very obvious again of that how they work it, and they're not doing any Melachah, and there's a very strong level of trust, and they have some of these shops again in Yerushalayim where people just walk in and they could, walk out with a can of tuna, and there's an understanding that you're going to come in on Monday and Sunday and drop off the cost, whatever it is for the tuna, and it's and you have an open bill. So in these cases, they're permissible. But we went through it. I don't want to answer 100% because it's not fresh in my head. But this is the laws of transaction, not the laws of Amir al-Nachri. And the problem in Amir al-Nachri is, like we said, this falls under the subject of your talk shouldn't be like talk of the week. So telling a Gentile to do something is part of talk of the week. He put it
So
into
you're saying those stores you go in and you're not talking, you just take it and
no,
they
no,
just watch you.
no, it's not, and you can't walk in and say, without having a prior relationship and try to create a relationship on Shabbos.
Okay.
What you could do is if you're particularly not from a familiar face, but coming from a familiar organization, let's say a shul or yeshiva, what have a relationship with this shop, but they just don't know that you're part of affiliated with that shul yeshiva. You can say, "Hi, I'm from Tzemach Tzedek shul," and the guy knows. You know what I mean? So then already you're not creating the relationship. You're just identifying yourself as being part of a prior relationship. You understand?
Can I share something like that?
Sure.
I don't know if I shared this another time, but there's a Frum family I know that lives across the street. There's like a small botanical garden in Riverdale that's across the street from the Telz Yeshiva.
Okay.
So you're supposed to pay admission when you go to the walk around in the garden, but they have a thing with the yeshiva where you walk in and you just say, I'm from the yeshiva, and then it's like understood that you don't need to pay anything. It's free.
Yeah, so that'd be very similar to that, exactly. So that'd be similar to that situation, and especially, I'm not sure if they ever have to pay. In the case of the buying in the store, eventually you have to fulfill your
I
obligation.
think it's like you pay it's by
A year.
donation, like whatever you want to contribute, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
supposed to give something, but it could be like $1, you know?
yeah. No, but they have a prearranged relationship that's
Yeah,
surely not relationship is not related specifically to Shabbos.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So then again, of course, if you identify yourself, that's not permitted. That's not prohibited at all on Shabbos.
I have a question about
Sure.
something else. It's
Sure.
not, I'm not sure if it's not really Amira Lanachari, but like all these businesses where there's like a Jewish owner and it's open on Shabbos because there's also a non-Jewish partner, like how is that okay? Because the Jewish partner is still he's making more money because that he's making more money during the week because that guy is the non-Jewish guy is earning the money from Shabbos. It's like how is that okay?
So again, this is obviously a detailed discussion because there's how it's done. There's, but it's discussed in halacha in length about ways of kind of separating it in a way that doesn't clearly 100% identify as you're taking Sunday versus him taking Shabbos. And it's a long discussion, but basically of how to allow for a partnership with the Gentile on Shabbos in a way that's not going to be violating the Shabbos, meaning, let's say you're not giving off. There's also questions of Marasayan, if let's say I don't know, a gym or a sweatshop, I don't know, or a schwitz, a what's it,
Sauna?
sauna or what have you. That's the Melachah. Everyone knows your name is on it. You own it. So, and if it's open on Shabbos, thinks you're doing business on Shabbos. So that's different. That's a question of Mara sign. But even in the case where there's no Mara sign, in the case where it's just straight up business, so this is discussed at length, and there's methods of how we do it.
Okay,
Yes, Barbara.
thanks.
I was just gonna say, I thought we studied this a while back where it was pretty much you couldn't you really had to separate it and it wasn't necessarily allowed
Yeah,
is what I understood.
yeah. I mean, again, it's depending how specific it is, how specific Shabbos is in the conversation. Yeah, yeah. But you're right. Again, this is something we studied before, but this is more on the transactional side of things. Here we're talking about the telling side of things.
Can I ask a question about Marasayan? I'm not sure if you covered this, but I know you just talked about if someone is cold, that's considered like being like a chola, but let's say it's like in the middle of a heat wave and you forgot to turn your AC on or something. So then when you call the non-Jewish neighbor in or something, you can't say exactly, you can't say, can you please turn on my AC? You have to like hint at it, right?
Yes, that's the thing. Amirah the is a very big subject that we learned in a few laws about what things have to be, what we learned in the law with regard to the heat was that you could directly tell the person, please turn on the furnace because it's a
Like
case.
they're chola.
That's something different. But over here in the case where the air conditioning, I guess it's obviously more of a discussion. What do we consider someone who's really hot? How, it doesn't say someone really hot is considered. Obviously, in the times of the Shulchan Aruch, there wasn't air conditionings, but the times of the Kitzur. But is I'm sure there's a discussion about an extreme heat wave, which it is dangerous to be in extreme heat as permissible as in the case of the heating. But again, everything is a question of comfort versus, really cold. We're
What
talking
if
about
it's gonna like ruin your own Shabbos and you'll be all like covered
that's
in sweat?
that's comfort. So then, like you said, there's ways of doing it, not directly. In the case of the heat, of the cold, and turning on the heat, it says you could clearly say turn it on without the whole
Right.
hinting and stuff like that.
And then is there something where you have to give them something like afterwards, like some food or
But,
something?
but what you like to do usually is that the person is experiencing in taking joy themselves in the moment. So it's not specifically for you.
So
So sit
you offer them like a piece
down,
of cake or something.
they're eating something, so there's something for them, and it's not just coming into and walking out.
Okay, thanks.
Barbara?
Yeah, I was just thinking along with what Rebecca said about turning on the AC. I mean, I grew up, and you're in Israel, but I grew up in the Midwest of the United States where it's extremely hot and humid during the summer, and it would be very dangerous for like really young children and senior citizens. I mean, couldn't you use that in the
Yeah, that's
case
what I'm
of,
saying. So in a case, anytime a person, pikuach nefesh, anytime that someone's life is in question, there's no question that, no pun intended, that you're allowed to do something to ease the situation.
okay.
All right, let's do a little bit. Let's start a little bit of chapter 91. The laws concerning one who feels slightly ill and a sick person whose condition is not critical. Okay, so critical we're gonna get to is separate. Obviously, critical is like I said before. In a critical question, there's no question. And these and like actually now we just started laws of Shabbos today. I mean today, so I mean Wednesday was the first two chapters, laws of Shabbos in the Rambam, which anyone who first two was the we start of Rambam today. We start chapter for me today, meaning Thursday. We start chapter 3, 4, and 5, and we know if you do 3 chapters a day, and everyone who's tackled Rambam up in the past knows that up until this week it's child's play. I'm not saying child's play, God forbid, as the study, but as far as the commitment of 3 chapters a day, because it's easier studying in shorter chapters. But starting with the laws of Shabbos becomes the longest exercise of learning 3 chapters of Rambam a day, which is difficult, the laws of Shabbos. And we start to learn about the laws already of a chayil, of someone who's sick, and what's the difference between someone sick. And also, when there's a disagreement or a doubt, if someone's sick, you have to, you have to, it's these cases, you don't play games. If someone says, I'm really feeling sick, and the other, I don't think you're so sick. It's not, you don't become God's doctor. Okay, so here we learn, but here in the case we're talking about clearly in a condition where a person feels slightly ill or is in a condition not critical. Someone who's slight mechush, he says, is slightly ill. And slowly getting he says, and makes an effort and manages to get around like a well person. It means you could push through. So for that person who's just feeling a little, and again, what does that mean? Does that mean when I remember there's a big advertisement in the United States, and I'm a person who's sensitive to this because I grew up myself suffering severely of allergies. So allergies usually is looked at as an annoyance by some because when you're sneezing a lot, other people get annoyed, or at best, some sort of condition that's not really serious. So there was a whole advertisement not advertisement, the whole so to say program or campaign to start to recognize allergies as a serious suffering. I suffer from allergies. If you called up someone at your office and said, I have a cold, they'd say, okay, take a day off. If you call up and say, I have allergies, at least when I was growing up in the 80s, that wasn't an excuse not to come to school or to come to work. You have allergies. Allergies is like you live with it. But there was this whole campaign when I was growing that at some point to recognize allergies as I'm not feeling well. The problem is if then you have to start putting on your application, I suffer from allergies. But and some people, and I know allergies could be very severe in the sneezing and also could lead to headaches, etc. So he says, but if you're mischazik v'hoilech body, you could get around. You're just not feeling great. So you can't do any treatment for that person, which would be in a way obviously violating the Shabbos, for someone who is just could get around but just not feeling so great. Even if it's not considered a total malacha, we'll see what that means in a second. And even to just apply oil as an ointment on a person, whether you can do it yourself or others. I feel like even for a Gentile. It means to do something Refuah, by the way, to do a refuah, that's why vitamins is, and we're going to get into tackle these questions in this chapter. You're not allowed to do certain things on Shabbos that are just like, a refuah that's not for a chola. So to do if you could get around and you just want to make it more convenient for you, then you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos, not yourself, and not ask others, not invite a Gentile. Okay, let's see footnote number 1. It's going to get into more detail. What we're understanding a little bit more from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is, when one reads the actual text from the Kitzur, is that the Kitzur was written for a person who is familiar with the structure of the law and just doesn't want to learn the full version of the law. Kitzur means the short version of the law. But the Kitzur was not written in a way for a person who has no familiarity to the law, and this is the easy version or the beginner's version. That's not what the Kitzur is. And we see this clearly in this law. Why? Because the Kitzur doesn't give us any background to this law. He just gives us the law in short writing. So one has to understand that when you learn Kitzur, that Kitzur is not a beginner's book, although a lot of people say start with Kitzur, because it's easier to start with Kitzur Shulchan Aruch than to start with the whole code of the Jewish law, because it's the shorter version. It comes in one book, one volume. The Shulchan Aruch is volumes, and more detailed law and more complicated. But it shouldn't be taken as the beginner's book unless you have proper help to understand it, like the footnotes we have here in the English, because the Kitzur is not written for 100% the beginner's level, like over here where it doesn't give us background to this law. So let's see footnote number 1, which is going to give us the background to this law. The sage, I'm not putting down the Kitzur, I'm just actually explaining how one should approach learning the Kitzur. The sages prohibited taking cures lest one come to grind medicines. So this is the question, that's why he's giving us the background to this law. To just take medicines on Shabbos is not so simple, because the concern is that you would grind, which is a prohibition on Shabbos, grinding, to make the medicines. Grinding is one of the 39 major halachos, prohibited labors. This prohibition applies only to taking to things done exclusively by and for the sick. Thus, walking for health reasons would be permitted. Okay, this prohibition again applies only to things done exclusively and by for the sick. It means if a person if something's for the sick done only by sick people, then you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos. Something that tackles again. This is a very complicated subject of how do we deal with refuah on Shabbos. But to take a walk, which is sometimes you say it'll be good for you to take a walk. You take a walk not just because you're sick. Thus, walking for health reasons would be permitted, since it is also done by a person who is well. But in theory, if walking was only done by a person who's sick, you wouldn't be able to walk on Shabbos. That's what he's trying to say. Okay, footnote number 2. We're not going to learn past this law, so we're just open for questions to get a little familiar with this chapter. This applies even if applying oil. So he says, if it is done only by and for the sick. Okay, back on footnote number 1. If applying oil is something that's only done for the sick, again, you have to remember, you can't learn from this about creams and other things, because we have smearing is also an issue, right? So oil is not really smearing; it's different than putting creams. So oil is so if it was done only by this, if it's done only by the sick, then it's prohibited, because it's something that a sick person does, and you now do things for the sick. Again, this isn't the case where a person is not severely sick, that you're doing something for pekuach nefesh. When it comes to someone's life, this is not the conversation we're having over here. We're talking about something that makes it convenient for someone who could get around, who just wants to make it easier. Okay, but if what he seems to be saying from the Mishnah Brura, which is quoted from the Ramah, that the oil placing is something that's done only by sick people, so then it's prohibited. He doesn't talk it, at least in the footnote, I have to see the original text. He's not so going further to say, and if it's done by everyone, it's permissible. He just says, in the case where it's only done by the sick. So footnote number 3. Hold on, Rebecca. Let's just do footnote number 3, and then we'll stop this. We'll open up questions and finish the class. And you're not allowed to even ask a non-Jew to do it for you. A non-Jew may be asked to do even a Melachah, the Araiser, for one who is ill. Okay, who is ill enough to be confined to bed. There's three levels over here. There's a mechush ba'oma, which means you get around, but you're just not feeling great. There's a chayla she'en bay sakana. It's not, you're not deathly. And then there's chayla she'esh le sakana, someone who's literally a sakana, you're in danger. So there's the one who's sick, a mamish sick, which means, what is the definition of sick? Means bedridden. So that they're confined to a bed where no one's concerned you're going to die today. But if you're a chayil l'shem sakana, then a Gentile is even allowed to do a da'iraisa. You're allowed to ask him to do a biblical prohibition, not you, but to ask the Gentile to do it. Again, if someone is sick and deathly, then even a Jew could do it, obviously. So says the Rambam, Mishnah Brura. Like I said, we're learning the Rambam now. For one who is less ill, some permit asking a non-Jew to do a melacha dirabanan. Sometimes, if it's less ill, again, the question is how much less ill and what are we talking about? Then, if it's a rabbinic, it's something different. Shulchan Aruch, Harav, others prohibit this. So says the Chai Adam 69:1. Yes, Rebecca.
Okay, so two things. One is I think that there's different opinions on this whole area of medicine on Shabbos because I learned from several different sources that you can't do um I mean, you can do something that's like preventative. Like I know a lot of from people who take vitamins on Shabbos, but you can't do something that's more like a refuah kind of a thing. Or I guess some people hold that you can't do something that's more like a refuah type, like where it's like to heal or to counter like a medical problem that the person already has. And then the other thing is that um, I remember learning that um, even if someone is not in danger, that if they would be in bed the whole day, if they would need to be in bed the whole Shabbos because of whatever the ailment is, then they are allowed to take like Tylenol or an allergy pill or something for their stomach or whatever. That's what I remember learning from a different sefer.
Okay, so like I said, we just wanted to open this conversation. But in the details of medicines and Tylenol and Advil and vitamins, we're going to start learning next week. Let's address that next week. The
Okay.
quick question.
Okay.
Yes, Barbara. Hold on, Aaron. Barbara?
Yeah, I have a question because you said that, they have to be really sick, and since I work in healthcare, I will see things like where a person's not sick, but like we have to crush their pills for them because they can't swallow. I mean,
Yeah. So that, again, we're talking about, so that's already a case of let's say chayla shein b'saka. That's a chayla. That's not a person who's getting around. Someone who can't swallow the pills is a chayla. And in that case, if you could find a Gentile to do it, obviously is better, because then asking a Gentile to do it is better. And if the person who doesn't take the pills is very dangerous, then you would have to do it yourself. I mean, then you have to ask yourself, how dangerous is it? How necessary is this medicine? Could it be delayed or not? But in the definitely this someone who's in the condition, even let's say the elderly, that need to take their medicines, and so then that's not just getting around. That's not some.
okay.
Again, I want to discuss this more at length next week. I want to gather myself more information. Allergy. I think we're getting into allergy season now, so it's a good time to discuss allergies and other things. Like Rebecca brings down the question of vitamins is the big discussion, or Tylenol and Advil. These questions have to be discussed more at length, and I want to be more informed before I answer better. But in general, yeah, I mean, this as someone who's lying in bed in even in an old age home. That's I mean, not what I mean. Even I mean, it's not someone who's considered a sick person, but must take their medicines. That's something else.
Okay, thanks, Rabbi.
Sure. Aaron, last question.
Okay. Um, so you have two choices of medicines, and it doesn't matter, but you have one that's in a cream or oil form, and you have one that's in a spray form. So, like deodorant, you should use the spray form.
Okay. Again, the deodorant is another question. We have to talk about applying deodorant in a way that's smearing. That's a problem of that's like it's like the problem of soap or toothpaste. For instance, lately I was in the mikveh and I use a spray. So this person pointed out to me that the worst thing you could do in the world is use a deodorant spray. It has aluminum and it's mamish. You might as well smoke 5 packs of cigarettes. It's the worst thing. He got on my case and told me like, please do not use deodorant spray. So he says you could find there's natural non deodorants that are natural that don't have aluminum in them, but they come in like a roll, but the roll itself is liquid. It's like a spray, but just in a roll. So that's that, but it's not, you're not smearing anything. It's not really a substance. So again, yes, so a spray is obviously better than a roll, which is like a paste or something. That's a
So,
problem.
okay, because I know my son won't on Shabbos use anything but a spray. But now you're
Yeah.
telling me we're gonna get sick.
No, I'm just telling you that I'm not promoting. This is not a health.
And let me just say one thing to make you at ease,
Yeah.
or maybe not make you at ease. Um, I've heard this as you did. It's also in most other deodorants that's in different forms. So it's not just the spray that has the aluminum.
Okay, I know that, but he was saying to find the non-aluminum
So you could
deodorant.
probably find a spray as well.
Possibly. Yes, Rebecca.
So actually, I think a Chabad Rebbitzin told me that if your lips are like very, very chapped, and like cracking, like on Shabbos in the winter, that it's okay to like put a little bit of Vaseline on your finger and dab it on, as long as you don't like rub it or smear it. Um, does that sound right to you?
That makes sense. Yeah.
But it's like an oily kind of, it's like
Yeah,
a thick
but
consistency.
yeah, but again, I want to discuss this more at length for starting from next week about if you like put oil in yourself. I don't. This is a question of the basis of what she's saying offhand would be if you only people put on lip whatever what do they call it again? Not
Chapstick
chapstick, whatever.
or
Like
lip balm?
lip balm also,
Yeah,
lip balm.
even like just regular to keep their lips fresh as opposed
Yeah.
to.
But
I think that would fall under the case of the taking a walk on Shabbos that everyone does. Because when he said in the footnote you can't put oils, he says only if the oil is used by sick people. Like I said, the Ramah doesn't continue to say, but if you're not sick, you could
okay,
put but so
Wait,
because
so
people
just
if
hold
everyone
on,
uses
Aaron.
lip balm, then it's okay to use
No,
lip balm on Shabbos?
that's the no. The problem is the smearing. That's
Okay,
this.
so as long as you don't smear it.
There's two questions. That's why she's saying to just dab it. There's two questions here. There's the smearing, which is because it's a thicker substance that you're not allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
That itself is a deraisa. Over here, to put just oil. Oil is not a solid like smearing the creams. So Vaseline is more of a solid. That's the problem of smearing on Shabbos. Now you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos because of it's itself a deraisa. But here that's what she says. You're not smearing. You're just dabbing it on your lips.
now
But
let
But
me
at
but to,
some point
but to
your
put
lips are
oil,
gonna close on it though. And then it is gonna be like you're kind of
but you're not. It's not. That's just happening. You're not doing.
yeah, on
You know.
purpose.
okay,
It's
but now my
hold on,
question is
Aaron. Hold on a second. I just want to finish. But what she was addressing, the question was putting oil on. That's not a problem. The problem is the issue that she was dealing with the smearing. Yes,
Okay.
Aaron.
okay, what about using the same stuff for a baby and diapers? You always have to put those creams on and everything.
On the baby, you're saying?
When you diaper rash creams and all that,
Okay,
and they don't have a rash yet, but
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
prevents
yeah,
it.
yeah. I want to get to that again. That's the same question, the smearing, but here's the question is of what's the severity of leaving a diaper or a rash? What could that
There's
rash
no
is?
rash yet, but
I know.
that's why you use the cream.
Okay, preventative on Shabbos is like Rebecca said is a question. Again, there's a lot of questions in the creams for the babies because there's preventative, the medicine, there's the smearing. Let's get to all that as Hashem next week. Laila Tov, everyone. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you as Hashem next class.
Thank you. Stay
Thank you.
Thank
safe.
you.
Bye-bye.